an ambassador for Denver. My guests become my home family and new longtime friends. I have taught yoga and meditation for 30 years and attract people who value harmony and peace. I have only had a positive experience and great reviews. My guests want to return. This has been the best thing in my life and makes me happy. If we all reach out to others and visitors, don't you think we're making this a better world?
George?
I'm going to ask a question, George Melcory, Maryland. Roughly, Airbnb has roughly 1,000 sites in the Denver area, if I'm not mistaken. Those are, at present, they're illegal. Isn't it funny that we have 330,000 homeowners and full-time renters that abide by the law? So I'm going to ask all the Airbnb people in here, how many are under legalized short-term rentals? Can I see a show of hands? That's what I thought. Thank you. That's my only issue. The reason I answer time. I went through this 4.5 years ago with absolutely unbelievable experiences with short-term rentals. And my neighborhood and another neighborhood, it took 1.5 years of constant pressure on the city to stop short-term rentals. It literally destroyed part of our neighborhood. There are legal ways of doing it. There are legal ways of going about it. If it's licensed, I'm for it. I want it, but that way you're part of the neighborhood. But having people come and go every week in neighborhoods is not good for the neighborhood. I want to know who my neighbors are. At the time, the neighbors came and went every week. And I want to tell you, that is not a good experience for registered neighborhood organizations.
Black, Curtis Black.
Hi, thank you. My name is Deb Henriksen. I'm from the Baker neighborhood. First, I just want to address, there's a perceived right that people think is being taken away, when in actuality, if they knew zoning laws, they never really have. As a business owner, there's ways to go about, because how you do it matters equally as much as what you're doing. I have been, I'm not going to say victim, that's a weak word, but I have shared a wall with a short-term renter unhosted. And I think Mr. Gray stayed one night. That's all I have to say about that. That's what brought us to action. Things being knocked off our wall. So there are many existing laws that have served us. I've lived in Denver in Baker since 2001, came down from Breckenridge in 97. I did work for Clear Creek County Health Department, high tourism rate. Health Department, bed bugs, big issue with health departments. They respond on a reporting basis where there's tourism. There are things that are not being reported. People don't know where they were exposed. So there's that issue with health. There's safety. Existing laws that have worked in our favor to have a good quality of life and standard of living in Denver is neighbor nuisance ordinance, barking dog ordinance, current city noise ordinances, as well as the current zoning and use ordinances. And I think things need to be regulated as a business. If you're not on the books, they can seize your assets and shut you down. Same thing can happen in violation of your mortgage, using your house for its unintended use with your bank. I know insurance, homeowners insurance, they will not honor claims in short-term rental. There are hotel insurance policies and things that do, but these are just legal issues. There needs to be education. Airbnb, I encourage you to back current party wall agreements and HOAs, have a legal department for support. Your listers are not educated. They are violating existing laws that set a good city structure for people to visit, period.
Thank you.
John.
Hi, my name is Ivan.
All right, we'll give you 1 minute, 30 seconds. 30 seconds.
Thank you very much. just three things on that. We do offer a host guarantee, which provides a level of insurance for a host to address exactly the issue that I believe Deb was talking about. And additionally, we very much encourage you to be aware of and comply with local laws, and that's why we engage in communities like this, so we can be part of that process and we can ensure that there's smart, simple rules in place that allow people to share their home and do it in a responsible and productive way.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Brad Cameron. I live in Capitol Hill, and I have basically a two-part sort of question. First, for Clark, I'm hearing a distinction between the hosted and the unhosted. And of those 82% that you said are renting out their primary residence, how many of those are like the guy with the air reserve who sounds like he vacates his primary residence while he rents, and how many of them are like the woman with the Korean visitor? I'm curious of that percentage. And then I guess for Mayor Beth Sussman, is that a distinction that has been talked about and is looked at? Because it seems like if the host is there, you're not going to be necessarily having as many of the negative effects as an unhosted, place, which some I think view as a party cat.
We're a platform that allows the host to determine who they feel most comfortable bringing to their home. We actually have a lot of processing and procedures that allow the host to feel that trust, to determine, to engage with people before they say yes or no. There's a very strong review process. So I can't determine between the two, and I don't necessarily have a distinction. I think that they're empowered to make their own choices with based on trust, with information that makes them feel safe and comfortable with what they're doing. We're very much supportive of that. We want to continue to build those processes.
You hit another issue for us, which is primary residence versus not primary residence, first of all. And actually, the question about, what does it do to our economy, it does appear that when it is a primary residence, it does help in our affordable living situation. If it's not your primary residence and you're purchasing, apartment houses that would normally be on the market, you might be reducing the affordable inventory in our city. So it's something that we're looking at, and we are also looking at, does the host have to be home? Or if not, how often can they rent if they're not home? These are all the things that we're going to put in and sort of like decision points, which I hope to have us all talk about, but you're right on the money about things we're thinking about.
Okay, thank you. Back in the back. No, to your left. Okay.
Who are you talking to?
Yes, you.
Thank you. I'm Ann Elizabeth, and I'm over in Groveville. And first of all, I want to say I'm coming down right in the middle of this because we need to diversify our incomes over in our properties as our taxes go up. It can be helpful. We're putting accessory dwelling units into possible zoning changes. I'm very mixed though because we're seeing trends where we're actually having comments from people. Well, no, we're not going to rent this out because we think we can make more by underselling the hotels downtown when events come into town, which is to me a very dangerous trend. It's not like having people come up into the communities, but I understand people being motivated for income. I think regulation is what will civilize us, having good standards. I want to say to this gentleman over here, with all due respect, I heard something completely different when she mentioned the shooting in the neighborhood. What I heard is that there was a problem getting a hold of the short-term renter owner because their information wasn't transparent. I didn't hear anything about it being a shooting at that or being used against it. I heard there be a lack of regulation to help us communicate with each other. We need to be very careful. It's important that we understand we hear things differently. I think posing problems is not criticism. I think defensiveness can be hubris. This trend is changing neighborhoods. I totally support the positive documentation of experiences, but we are causing trends here that do impact supply and demand on housing. We don't know specifically what the impact is of people in neighborhoods that are trying to develop their indigenous economy, having more transient short-term rentals rather than more rooted residents, drawing in multi-generational customers into their businesses. These are complicated, and I just would ask everybody to recognize we need to be very scientific, and there's researching is a dime a dozen. It's the Google age. We need to know the facts, and I hope that you guys will be more transparent about how you do your studies and what the roots of them are.
Okay, thank you. Rich?
Jim? Tim O'Byrne, West Lodge Park. It's all right. That's all right. A couple questions. I've heard a couple things passed out. One of them was spoken, leveling the playing field. How much Airbnb, how much you guys? 10 billion, 13 billion? Is that what I heard?
There's different numbers.
Okay. Kind of hard. And also, for you, Margie, you were talking about the adjustment hearing we just had where the woman was, how many properties did she have?
She had 2 in Denver, but if I'm not mistaken, I think she has over 20.
20 properties, yeah.
Yeah, 20 properties. She was from Florida and had recently purchased 2 houses here in
Right. Right, so that probably takes away from some of the affordable housing for people that want that. Okay, thank you.
All right, right here.
My name is Nicole and I'm an Airbnb host in Park Hill. Being a host has been a positive experience for my family and I feel confident that my neighbors would say the same. The majority of our guests have been either visiting or supporting family in or near our neighborhood. There was a gentleman who came for 2 weeks to help his father through chemo treatments. We just had a guest leave last week that was here to handle the unexpected death of her mother. It's been an honor to give these guests a place that has warmth of home and some quiet space to feel connected to their community, even if they don't live here. Do you see that these guests are a part of our community too? And does giving them a space that feels like home feel of value to you?
Oh, you asked that question?
Yeah.
Oh, and who was it?
The panel in general. Did
Okay,
do I need to re-ask the question?
Okay.
I wanted to know if they see the people that are coming in, that we're serving, that are part of our neighborhoods as part of our community and people that need to be served that way, and if that's of value to us as a group.
It's an interesting perspective. I know that people worry about not knowing who's next door. But that worry, I think, could happen whether it's short-term rental or long-term rental. But I think there is a sense of wondering, of wanting to know who's next door. Or at least if there is something if there is some sort of rental going on, that the neighbors are aware of that and learn about the people. That's what I have heard as we talk about this in the community.
Paul, go ahead.
As I'm looking at this, I'm with a lot of people.
I'm not real sure that, I don't have an opinion either way on whether we should change the ordinance or not. But what is clear to me is the only way it could possibly work is with a complete buy-in between the city and the platforms like Airbnb. So I'd like to ask the gentleman from Airbnb, if we passed a law and said 200 houses could do short-term rentals, would Airbnb be willing to refuse to take listings from someone who couldn't show a valid permit, honoring whatever ordinance we pass?
So I don't want to get ahead and speculate on a process that I know is ongoing. What I will say is that we want to work towards solutions that allow access to the ability for people to easily share their home, but also do it in a way that is fair, part of the community, has sensible steps in place. So we're here to be part of that process, and we want to be part of that process. I can't speak specifically at this point to that specific situation.
You won't speak to it. You won't speak to it?
I'm not going to speculate on things that haven't been finalized yet, but look, we're here because we want to work with them.
Okay. And Mr. Cashman is one of our council candidates, so he might be a councilman that you're dealing with at the people. So, go ahead.
I was just thinking that, my name is Thais Litters. I'm in South Denver. I was just thinking that President Jimmy Carter, he started the Friendship Force to incentive to promote friendship in the world, to avoid wars and things like that. For me, the way I understand Airbnb is the same principle. But we make money, and so some people have an eye on it. But it's not only for making money, because people who don't like people will not be an Airbnb host or guest, because there is a lot of interaction. Long before I started hosting for Airbnb last year, because of my work, I'm a professional translator. I speak 4 languages. I live in different parts of the world. So I'm accustomed with this cross-cultural interaction, and I think that there is I'm feeling some bias here for lack of information. I would consider that the panel, people in charge of creating, drafting these ordinances, I would invite you at least once to be an Airbnb host, so you can know better what you're talking about. Thank you.
Thank you. I would just comment, this is the second meeting that INC has had where we invite everybody to come and be involved in the dialogue. So it's not like we're shutting people out. I mean, as you hear, you've been allowed to speak, and a lot of other people have been allowed to speak, and the councilman has had numerous meetings of her task force also. So, I mean, it's not like nobody's looking for information.
Can I say one thing? I have been an Airbnb guest, although it was Craigslist. Airbnb has become a brand like Kleenex, and just to be, put a little lightheadedness into this. When Vince Carroll was going to write his article, I was in an Airbnb in New York when he called me, although it was in a hotel.
Was it legal?
It was a hotel, it was legal. But Airbnb is like a Travelocity site as well. And I didn't realize that.
The gentleman?
I don't know if I need a mic. My name is Steve Harley. I live in Baker. And full disclosure, I have been a short-term renter in several places, but I haven't been a host. I think the thing that we're hearing, the biggest concern about is the impact on bad people coming in or disrupting or people that are not bad, but they're just disruptive, things like that. And I think that we've got a lot of codes on the books that try to regulate some of those things, and that the system for enforcing them right now is inherently unfair. It's by complaint. And so how are we going to make it any more fair by putting more of this complaint-based, very unevenly enforced laws on the books? I think we need to address the overall situation. And part of the reason I say that is because I have had an experience with a long-term rental who was horrible, and the city was not very helpful in addressing that, nor was that the landlord wouldn't evict them after they had been arrested for crack possession. They had to wait until they hadn't paid the rent for 2 months before he would bother to evict them. So my question is it really reasonable to anticipate enforcing something like this on a fairer basis than our current complaint-based system?
You asked him that question? Yes, I answered that question.
That's just another really good point. How can we continue to maintain this on a complaint-based piece, and that also is a question about level playing field.
Back in the back, you've had your hand up a lot.
My name's Erin Ganser. I'm here speaking for my folks who were too nervous to come because Airbnb has made a significant impact in our households. They're in their mid-70s. It's enabled them to stay in their home, which is in my neighborhood in Baker. I have 3 kids under 6. My husband and I both work full-time. My parents have to help run kids to school, help pick them up. Our neighbor's wife recently died. Now they're running their kid to school. They're an extra set of parents that our neighborhood gets because they can afford to stay in their home because they rent it out through Airbnb. We absolutely would do permitting, licensing, but it's critical that the cost and process that you put hosts through are commensurate with the amount of money that they make. Being able to host brings certainly financial benefit to our family and security to our family, but It also fosters intergenerational and intereconomic participation in the neighborhood, that our neighborhood is gentrifying so fast. That if my parents couldn't stay in this house, it goes to the next youngster. I might be the youngster, who knows, you know? But the fact that it's enabling the neighborhood fabric to stay whole, for them to be contributing members of the fabric, supporting multiple households, that it's a unique income stream, and however you decide to regulate it, you need to respond to the fact that it is fine-grained detail. You know, I have to reiterate the two comments that a couple other people made. There is no positives section in here. You don't address the fact that it's helping people stay in their home and support affordable housing. You don't talk about the fact that everybody that stays with us goes to Happy Coffee, goes to Sugar Bake Shop, goes to these places because we tell them about them and we want them to go there. And so recognize there are positives. You have to Google and research for the positives, not just the negatives. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you. And I'll just say again, we have this forum today, we're allowing people to make these comments, so I mean, it's not like we shut everybody out. Steve.
I'm Steve Nissen, live in Alamo, Posita. I own and manage an apartment building in Capitol Hill, so I empathize with the gentleman who spoke about not being able to get tenant problems solved with the city. And that is a real issue. You often hear about tenant rights, but you never hear about landlord rights. But aside from that, I'd like to ask Mary Beth if the city has engaged the health and safety departments extensively in this research planning. Thanks.
Thank you for the question, Steve. Yes, if we go forward with regulations, we not only look at zoning, we have to look at safety, fire, excise and license, and the finance department if we are taxing it. It wouldn't be probably wouldn't be a single ordinance. It would probably have to have companion ordinances related to that. Excise and license would be the location of any rules about health and safety inspections. They would put those on top in order to get a license. You're an international corporation. You have had questions and concerns about Airbnb and through different cities, for sure. I mean, that is not an unknown. What steps specifically have you taken, Airbnb has taken, to regulate some of the concerns? Because there's some consistent concerns that I'm sure that are coming across to you. Have you taken some regulations and have you withdrawn any of your hosts if they don't meet those regulations, and how do you monitor that?
So we very much, are concerned with these types of issues. I think that the ways in which we work with cities is very incumbent on this priority for us as well. But I want to make clear, we are a platform, as you alluded to. This is something that people are using all over the country, all over states, all over the world, and we work with each of these places when there's concerns raised to determine if there are specific concerns and support that effort to develop what those concerns might be into the law. And again, the law is the authority of the state and the city to implement. We want to create a way that there's a platform to work within that and to allow our hosts to share their homes safely and responsibly, but in accordance with what communities deem most appropriate.
Do you see that perhaps I'm not hearing a positive here. So do you believe that perhaps this has to have federal regulation because it is a internet structure, and that I'm not hearing specifically that you are saying, well, I'll work with this city and I'll work with that city, but for national. I'm not talking international, I'm talking national. Do you think that it would be more appropriate to have this go through the federal government? So, because it's an internet
I mean, I can't really speak to that. I think housing issues typically are dealt with on the local level, so that's why we engage on the local level. We find that to be productive, and we're happy to be part of that process. And I think if you look at, there's a lot of cities that you said we have, where the laws have passed, we're very involved in that process. We want to make sure we can do that here so that all these people can continue to share their home in a safe way that the community deems appropriate.
Diana, did you have your hand up?
I was just going to say that this is the fourth one of these meetings I've been to, and it always is the same. There are people who have had wonderful, wonderful experiences with foreign people living in their home for a while, and that's fine. And if you're living there and the person is there too, I think it's great. There are people who really need the money and have just made it through life because they were able to rent a room in their house.
And then there's people who have had terrible things going on next door to them or in their block, and they have just had awful examples of the same thing. So I think what we've all learned here over and over again is that this committee really has its work cut out for them. They really need to consider all of the things that are on the sheet that was passed out to you. They are grateful for every comment they've heard, and we really need to come to some sort of conclusion that will help the people who really, the good experiences, and control the really bad experiences. We know there are both, and maybe some neighborhoods could opt out of the whole thing. I don't know if that's a possibility or not. It's a possibility. I just think that there's so many different levels of this problem we're considering. I'm very, very happy that we have a committee that has INC people on it, and that you have all had a chance today to tell us the good things and the bad things. So I'm just hoping, wishing the best for this panel and this committee. Mary Beth, thank you for bringing this to our attention. People say this is the coming thing, it's going to happen, whether you like it or not. And so I think really, I don't quite agree with that, but I'm glad we're doing this. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Oh, were you done answering? Or responding? I'm sorry, did you get that?
Thanks. Tim McHugh from Washington Park East. It sounds like Portland has had somewhat of a negative experience. I wonder if Airbnb is doing anything proactive to do that, or are you just waiting till the city says, this is what you have to do?
In Portland or?
In Portland or any other city that you've had some problems?
Sure, no, we're very actively engaged. I think one of the things that we found as more and more cities have taken these on is, what's most beneficial for everybody involved are simple, clear policies and laws on this. Simple policies that allow this to happen, and if there's concerns, if there's requirements, make those clear so that they can be accomplished. That's certainly what we support. I think San Jose recently passed a law that I think everyone feels is implementing quite well. So, we of course are looking at this, and we want to support our community and make sure they're able to do what they hope to do with their homes, what they like to do with their homes, and we look forward to continuing that process here.
So what specifically have you done in those areas? Anything specific?
In what way?
I don't know, responding to the law changes.
Well, yeah, can I get the mic back?
I don't know any time.
I think what he's asking is, do you require people that are in San Jose or in Portland to subscribe to the law?
Absolutely. If you are in a place where there are laws been passed, there's very explicit language making you aware of what that is, encouraging you to, if the law requires you to read your lease, whatever those specific things are, and again, they're different place by place by place, but one of a bedrock principle of Airbnb is education. Whether it's education of safety, but in many ways education of the local laws and ordinances, and specifically when they directly apply and are passed and intend to affect this community. We work very hard to make sure that our community is well aware of it, and if we can assist them in doing so, we do.
In Portland, what happened is they initially passed an ordinance, and there was a process for permitting. 92% of the Airbnb hosts in Portland did not apply for a permit. Therefore, there was no way to collect the taxes and some of the other compliance issues. The city of Portland thereafter had to amend their ordinance, and what they did is they assessed $500 fine against the hosting platform for every time there was a host that refused or did not file for a permit. So it is very, very complicated on this, and the permitting issue in itself will take Kyle and Abe and Mary Beth some time to explore and figure out.
Mary Beth, just want to elaborate on the federal part.
Oh,
Do you?
that's okay. I was going to say, I don't want the federal government telling me who can rent and who can't rent in my neighborhood.
We're going to take 2 more people, and that we'll have to cut off. We did tell people.
Sure.
Charles Harden with Walter Homeowners Association. I've been a resident in my house for 37 years, and you know, it is a concern for our neighborhood, for us, and the bird noise falls on the neighbors to enforce and monitor anything that's going bad in the neighborhood. When everything's good, it's fine. But, you know, my concern is that the bird noise falls on the other residents. My question to Clark, from what I've been hearing is that your company seems to be more of a service, a facilitator to people that want to be in this business. But you don't have any real authority or enforcement power when it comes to dealing with each individual person that's doing this. You encourage them, you work with the cities and their ordinances, but you don't have really a handle on all of the people. And that you can't control them other than encouraging them. If they violate an ordinance, the city, the residents, everybody in that community has to deal with it. You're not going to step in and say, you're out of here.
Well, let me say 2 things on that. First, I think as you've heard from the hosts, I mean, as you've heard me say, the vast majority of our hosts are hosting the home where they live. They care exactly about the same things that you just mentioned. They're not, those concerns do not, you know, they apply. They care about the same things, and that's why I think a lot of folks who do use Airbnb versus maybe other platforms do so, because there is that trust element, the ability to really understand who this person is. Do they, you know, do I want to bring them in? Do I want to make this available to them? I think guests feel the same way.
I think a resident host is probably a good thing, a lot better than a non-resident. Much better.
But to answer your question, we all have our own policies, and if someone, you know, goes astray of those, we obviously can take action against them.
The woman here beside Bernadette. Did you have a question?
No.
Oh, behind. Okay, look at
This is behind us.
This will be the last one. I'm sorry.
I just want to say that I'm Marty Laurier from Berkeley Neighborhood Association. I'm in unincorporated Adams County, but Denver, so I pay taxes for both. And personally, I am an Airbnb host. I lived overseas, and I want to give back to people that are coming into our country or that are visiting from other states. And I can't tell you how many people I have hosted who come to work in Denver. They have a job, but they can't find affordable housing. So they come and stay with me for a short time, and then some of them do find housing. I don't know if people realize, but you have an online ID check. It is a federal ID check for both the host and the guest. And then just in my own hosting information, I say that I am not 420 friendly and I'm not smoking friendly. And I try to be as good a neighbor as I can be. The rentals that I've had with Airbnb allow me to stay in my home as a retired teacher. And so I appreciate everyone's comments here today.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the comments that everybody's made, and hopefully the people that see nothing but positives can also see that, hey, maybe there's some negatives there and vice versa. But I hope it was good dialogue for council members. I certainly appreciate all the panel members coming and giving their input, and I think we should give them all a
Thank you to our panel members, to all of you for coming, Margie for putting this together, all of you for being here. Those of you who signed up for silent auction items, please stop over and see Gail. And please attend our meetings in the future, and please get involved in your own neighborhood organizations, and that's how you have a voice, and how we learn, and how we grow as a city and as neighbors. Thank you for coming.